A patient with a heart condition is heading for the cath lab. He has a narrowed coronary artery. If left untreated, it could trigger a heart attack.
今日は右手から、技師者斉藤医師で心臓カテーテル治療を行います。
Cardiac catheterization is a minimally invasive intervention that makes it possible to treat diseased heart vessels without the need for open heart surgery.
Did you sleep well last night?
Yes, I had a good night's rest.
A local anesthetic is administered to the patient's wrist. He will remain fully conscious throughout the procedure.
Okay, bring me that catheter.
Central to this procedure is the catheter, a 1.5 meter long tube less than 2 millimeters in diameter. It's inserted into the radial artery in the patient's forearm and guided all the way to his heart. Doctor stays in constant communication with the patient.
To see if we really have to open all the narrowed points. It won't be necessary for the right coronary artery.
So I'll be able to go back to doing all kinds of activities?
Of course.
Even golf?
Oh yes. You really love golf, don't you? Well, I think that's about it for today.
The full procedure lasted less than 30 minutes. The patient is able to get up by himself.
That was impressive. I feel like I've just been to the leading edge of medical science. I can't believe I'll be able to leave tomorrow.
Most patients are released from the hospital after 2 or 3 days. Some are discharged on the same day, which helps to minimize hospital fees. In 1929, German physician Werner Forsman became the first person to perform a cardiac catheterization. He performed it on himself and later won a Nobel Prize. Many doctors followed in his footsteps and helped to perfect the technique. These advances were made possible by the development of groundbreaking medical devices. One company has taken the lead in the field of high-performance catheters. Terumo Corporation was founded in Japan in 1921. It now has 19,000 people. Terumo produces a wide range of medical devices, from catheters to artificial lungs and injection needles.
Our aim is to make products easier to use for the doctor and gentler on the patient.
Treating patients gently is the vision that established Terumo as a front-runner in the manufacturing of interventional catheters.
It's all about innovation. Japan hasn't been very creative in the development of medical devices. We have to turn that around.
In this episode of J-Tech, we unveil the vision of a Japanese manufacturer that is pushing the boundaries of medical technology.
Hello, I'm Marc Carpentier. Welcome to the second edition of J-Tech Innovation and Evolution. Coronary heart disease is one of the world's leading causes of death. It used to be that the most effective way to treat heart conditions was through open heart surgery, a complicated procedure that puts a heavy burden on the patient, both physically and financially. Now, with the development of ultra-thin plastic tubes called infections can be treated in ways that are much less invasive and potentially safer and more cost-effective. The procedure that involves the use of a catheter to treat heart conditions is called cardiac catheterization, and it's revolutionizing medical science. It involves inserting a catheter into one of the patient's main arteries to reach the heart. Until recently, most physicians chose to enter the body through the femoral artery in the groin. But because it's a large vessel, there's a risk of bleeding, and the patient must remain immobilized for several hours after the operation for the puncture wound to heal. Today, more and more physicians are choosing to enter the body through the radial artery in the forearm, a technique known as Trans-radial intervention, or TRI. This procedure lowers the risk of complications and is much easier on the patient. There's less bleeding, and the patient can literally walk away from the operating table. 70% of all coronary diseases in Japan are treated this way, making Japan one of the top countries in the use of TRI. One of the world's leading manufacturers of catheters is Japanese medical equipment company Terumo. But before we tell you about the company's products, let's examine the role of catheters in the operating room.
The Shonan Kamakura General Hospital in Kanagawa Prefecture, just south of Tokyo. Procedures involving the use of catheters are performed here almost every day. This 69-year-old patient suffers from arteriosclerosis. He's making his way to the cath lab, unassisted.
You're just about to receive heart treatment, and you're walking there?
That's right. Can you believe it?
Dr. Shigeru Saito will be performing the intervention. Dr. Saito has pioneered trans-radial coronary intervention in Japan and internationally. He also plays an important role in improving TRI by providing advice to manufacturers on the development of catheters.
The arteries of this patient are as hard as stone. I'll be treating him with a special device called a rotablator.
A buildup of plaque on the inside wall of the patient's coronary artery is blocking the flow of blood to his heart. The purpose of the device will be to drill through the plaque and enlarge the man's artery. The procedure begins. The only anesthetic required is administered to the patient's wrist. First, a sheath is inserted into the patient's radial artery in his forearm. With the sheath in place, a guide wire is fed through the arteries until it reaches close to the diseased artery. The wire will later guide the catheter effortlessly through the maze of blood vessels. Once the catheter is in place, the guide wire is pulled out. The catheter can now be used as a conduit to introduce and deploy a number of different tools and devices needed for the intervention.
Bring me the guide wire. This is the guide wire. It's as thin as a human hair, and the tip is extreme. It won't hurt the blood vessel. And not only that, but the tip moves exactly the way I move the proximal end of the wire. That's how I'll get it to the target area.
The guide wire is a crucial instrument. Without it, it would be difficult to safely move the catheter through the tricky twists and turns of the vascular system. It takes Dr. Saito less than a minute to guide the 1.5 meter long guide wire to the focal area.
Okay, bring me the next one. This is the drill. The burr is tipped with 2,000 diamonds. This part rotates very fast. I'll advance it over the wire I showed you earlier. Here's how it spins. The tip will spin at a rate of over 200,000 revolutions per minute.
The device will drill through the calcified plaque that is blocking the coronary artery.
210,000 RPMs, 5 seconds.
It's over in an instant.
Okay, we're done. We shaved off the hard part.
Oh, you did?
How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
The next step is to enlarge the narrowed portion of the artery.
This is the stent.
The stent is a 3-centimeter-long mesh tube made of stainless steel. It's deployed inside the constricted area of a blood vessel to restore the proper flow of blood. Once the stent is in place, the delivery catheter is removed. The stent expands and remains in place, reinforcing the wall of the artery.
Get the next ready.
The procedure is entering the final stage.
The stent is in there. Now we have to expand it sufficiently. For that, we use a high-pressure resistant balloon.
The balloon's role is to further expand the stent and make it tightly hug the inner wall of the artery.
The black area in the middle is the catheter. The white dots are the stent. We're using ultrasound to visualize and ensure the expansion. You can see how well it expanded. And that's the end of the procedure.
The obstructed artery has been successfully repaired.
Thank you very, very much.
The whole procedure took less than 30 minutes.
I had no idea it would be so short.
Are you all right? Your artery was calcified.
Were you able to remove it?
Yes, we were.
Oh, thank you very much.
So now you know how things go.
When I heard it was a heart problem, I thought I would be in the hospital for a month or so. This catheter method is truly amazing.
The patient will be discharged in 2 days.
Arteriosclerosis hardens the arteries, but arteries are actually very delicate tissue. They're softer and more vulnerable than a straw, more like gelatin, if you will. Operating on such a delicate part without causing any damage calls for a quality device. That's why developing new tools is so crucial. The more sophisticated the technique, the bigger the role of advanced medical devices in developing our skills. Quality devices allow us to accomplish so much more. And vice versa, our needs as physicians is driving the development of new devices. We depend on one another.
Terumo has developed several different devices for use in catheter treatments. To find out more about the technology, I visited the company's facilities in Kanagawa Prefecture.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thanks for greeting us today.
Thank you.
What does PRANIX stand for?
PRANIX actually stands for Practice Annex. It's a mock hospital where we have multiple training machines as well as actual hospital facilities where we can do trainings for medical professionals.
Your son. I think that's a lead jacket.
You're all changed
Yes.
and ready to go?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're going to need this.
You are definitely going to read it.
A lot of radiation in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, doctor.
Alrighty. This
Shall
way,
we?
please.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. This is amazing.
Yes.
It's very impressive. So what do we have here?
This is an actual angio machine which actually projects the X-ray.
I see. It's exactly the way it would be
Exactly.
if we went to a hospital. I see.
I had a chance to try my hand at running a catheter through a radial artery on a mannequin.
Okay, Mark, this is a device that you use to put into your vessels and arteries to guide the other devices to your target.
Including the catheter.
Including the catheters, absolutely. Do you want to take a little bit of a...
Sure. I know they're extremely thin and
Yes.
very flexible. That's amazing. Look how flexible that is. And especially the tip is so flexible.
Do you want to try something? Put
Put this in the water?
water?
Yes? Okay.
And see how it feels.
All right. So I just dipped it in the water here. Okay.
You feel the difference?
Oh, my goodness. Oh. I can hardly feel it between my fingers. That's how slippery it is.
Very, very slippery, which enables this guide wire to track into your vessels and be able to control very well.
I see. So when this comes in contact with the blood,
Yes.
it becomes very slippery
very
like
slippery.
this. Amazing.
This is full of technology.
And then introduce it into here. All right. And then simply push it through.
Yes. You're going to see the tip of the guide actually coming
Oh, there it
from
is.
here.
Okay. I'm wondering, is it coming in? Yes. I can hardly feel it between my fingers. That's how slippery this is. Oh, it is coming out. Okay.
Yes.
It's moving along there. Okay.
Now
well, I've
you reach the
heart.
target,
Yeah.
yes, which is in the artery very close. So let me introduce the other devices.
All right.
This is one of our treatment devices. This is called a stent.
This is the stent. This tiny. Oh my goodness, look at this. Look at how small that is. Wow. And this is going to deploy inside the blood vessel.
That is correct. I'm going to expand this.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready for it. Oh, look at that. Wow. So it's extremely strong, but at the same time, very flexible. And this is what's going to help somebody live many years more. How can you make something so tiny?
Yes, it's amazing, right? This is actually made of a stainless steel tube, which is actually cut by laser.
But the core technology for Terumo
Yes.
remains the guide wire.
Guide wire. Yes. We have hundreds of variations of guide wires from thin to thick with multiple shapes and multiple lengths. But our strength is the access guide wire that you just used gives us 60% of the global market share.
Medicine and technology have evolved side by side. They actually depend on each other. Surgeons and physicians have played a major role at guiding manufacturers in the development of medical devices. And that's exactly how Terumo has become one of the world's top medical device companies.
Sekisen Kenonki Corporation, a small manufacturer of clinical thermometers, was founded in Tokyo in 1926. Its corporate philosophy was based on the idea that public health is the foundation of national stability. One of its founders was a bacteriologist named Shibasaburo Kitasato. His contributions to the development of a serum against tetanus made him one of the fathers of modern medicine in Japan. The company hoped that manufacturing quality thermometers would be a way to honor Kitasato's work in the field of preventive medicine. The company's thermometers featured an easy-to-read red-colored scale, and their reputation for quality spread outside Japan to the United States and 53 other countries. In 1974, the company changed its name to Terumo. By then, the company had diversified and had begun manufacturing other devices. It went from making disposable syringes to manufacturing blood bags and artificial lungs. Then, in 1979, a revolutionary medical procedure developed by a German physician caught the attention of the company. It was called cardiac catheterization. That's when Terumo started to pursue the development of catheters.
At the time, we were sort of a venture company in the field of catheters. It was about engineers lending their ear to the market, listening to doctors, and asking them about the kind of problems they faced. Our main strength was in our manufacturing know-how, in continuously trying to improve our products to make the procedure easier for the doctors and their patients. In an age of unbridled rivalry, Terumo took up the challenge of developing catheter guide wires.
Hiroshi Yagi has dedicated his entire career at Terumo developing catheters. He explains the difference between guide wires developed 30 years ago and those made today.
Early guide wires were made of coiled stainless steel wire, much like the cable connecting the pedal and the brakes in your car. This is the kind of technology that was being applied in the medical field.
Early guide wires were typically made of stainless steel, basically spring coils coated with silicone. They were difficult to maneuver inside the blood vessels and tended to break easily.
It made no sense to develop a product based on this idea, so we thought of creating something new, of different value.
Terumo's engineers turned their attention to a new type of material called superelastic alloys. These are also called shape memory alloys because of their ability to return to their original shape after being bent. The engineers thought these alloys would be most suitable for their guide wire core. They wrapped the superelastic alloy wire with X-ray resistant polyurethane. This presented several advantages.
Ordinary metal guide wires would lose their shape after being bent. Superelastic wires, on the other hand, are very resilient and strong, and they're very flexible at the same time. But they're also quite expensive.
The company chose to go with superelastic alloys despite the cost, even if this meant making a product that would be more expensive than other brands.
We thought this kind of product could answer the needs of physicians. We weren't absolutely sure, but we believed this material could provide an answer. So we bet on it.
Terumo's engineers also chose to experiment with another innovative material that would be used as a coating for the guide wire.
Until then, coatings tended to be hydrophobic materials that repelled water. We decided to use a material that was water absorbent.
This substance is called hydrophilic polymer. Its water-absorbent property gives the guide wire a phenomenal characteristic.
It acts like a lubricant when it comes in contact with water. It gets slimy, like an eel.
When the polymer absorbs water, it swells like a gel. The polymer strands are structured like the hairs on a brush. Water molecules stick to the polymer strands, making them more slippery. The water decreases resistance and helps the guide wire move more smoothly through narrow blood vessels. After 6 years of development, Terumo's guide wires were first put on the Japanese market in 1985 and introduced to the US market 2 years later. Their quality greatly impressed the medical community and other manufacturers. In 1992, the use of catheters further evolved. A doctor in Europe devised a new method to reach the heart through the forearm instead of the groin. Called Trans-radial coronary intervention, or TRI, the procedure was first developed in the Netherlands by Dr. Ferdinand Kiemeneij. The large femoral artery in the groin is 10 millimeters in diameter, while the radial artery in the forearm is only 3 millimeters across. Accessing such a small and delicate vessel was so complex that many doctors thought the procedure was impossible. But one doctor in Japan believed the new technique was worth investigating, Dr. Shigeru Saito.
This is a letter I received from Dr. Kiemeneij. He and I are actually friends. It's the original case report on the world's very first TRI intervention procedure that Dr. Kiemeneij performed himself on August 14th, 1992. That's when it all started. From the patient's point of view, you're able to walk immediately after the procedure. That's an enormous advantage. And from the medical perspective, the risk of complications is extremely low. When entering from the groin, the artery is thicker and it's much deeper under the skin. So you can't tell if there is bleeding or not. There's a very high risk of complications of this kind. On the other hand, the artery in the wrist is much shallower, and because it's thinner, simply applying pressure on it can stop any bleeding. The patient could even do it themselves. That's why there's no risk of potentially fatal complications.
People at Terumo immediately understood the benefits of TRI.
I remember thinking, this is amazing. We can do it from the wrist. It was simply astonishing. The patient could walk right after the procedure. I was convinced this was best for the patient. But at the same time, I realized that the artery in the forearm is a lot thinner. Some things you did from the groin were impossible to do from the wrist. I remember thinking this. People kept telling me TRI is impossible.
One particular challenge associated with TRI tormented both doctors and engineers.
The artery in the wrist is different from other arteries in the body, in that its size can change dynamically. It can easily spasm and collapse. In the early days of TRI, figuring out a way to prevent this was a very big issue. Why the spasms? It might be that moving the catheter could rub against the inner wall of the artery. That stimulation could trigger a spasm.
These concerns led Terumo's engineers to develop a device called a sheath. The sheath serves as the entry point for the guide wire and the catheter. It has to prevent the artery from collapsing in a spasm. It's a crucial piece of equipment because it remains in the artery throughout the procedure. Yagi and his team thought they could prevent the spastic response of the artery by coating the sheath with the same hydrophilic polymer used for coating the guide wires, but it wasn't so easy.
The coating just wouldn't stick. We tried for more than a year. Every single day we went back at it, trying different ways, performing evaluations. We had to define a set of benchmarks because there weren't any.
Terumo's team eventually found a way to make the coating stick to the sheath. The technology significantly reduced the risk of spasms in TRI.
Back then, what the doctors needed most was the right type of device. I remember their joy every time a new device was developed.
Terumo succeeded in developing its own guide wires and sheath. These devices are helping to spread the practice of TRI. California State University medical centers are known to be among the top medical institutions in the United States. TRI is widely practiced here.
Now you look just like that. Yeah. Not sure what you're in. Catheter's going in, tiger's going in.
Dr. William Su is a Harvard-trained interventional cardiologist and is a leading expert in the practice of TRI in the United States.
Oh, thank you.
Got some warm blankets.
Oh.
This is a very nice sheath and has become very popular. The whole kit actually is very good from Terumo. Not only the sheath, but also the needle and the wire kit. So because of the assembly and their design, we really like these products.
Dr. Su thinks TRI is right for the times, and its practice is bound to spread.
From a healthcare perspective, especially in our current era of looking for cost savings, the radial approach is cost effective. Because there are fewer complications associated with the radial approach, there is less money spent in evaluating and treatment of potential complications from a catheterization procedure. There is also the possibility that we could actually discharge patients home the same day after a coronary intervention when we do take a radial approach.
We're committed to delivering quality products. It's a source of benefit for the doctors, and in the end, it serves the interests of the patients. Heart disease is now a serious issue that affects not only advanced countries, but also the developing world. Until now, many nations lacked the resources to promote medical care, but healthcare is progressing in countries like China, Brazil, and India, and the use of catheter technology is literally skyrocketing. We're determined to expand our presence in those markets.
In March 2013, 8 doctors from Mexico arrived at Terumo's training center in Japan to learn the TRI method. Several years ago, the company approached the Japanese government with the idea of exporting both its TRI devices and training as a package for developing countries. The concept is now part of Japan's official development assistance. A training program was launched in 2011.
Microcatheter from the guide wire over the guide wire.
This team of Mexican doctors trained for 8 days at the center. They learned about Terumo's TRI devices and how to use them.
Well, I hope that this situation could change a lot. And the objective is to multiplicate this knowledge to my other friends and doctors in my hospital.
The visit also provided a unique opportunity to observe Dr. Saito as he performed an intervention.
How do you feel the feedback?
Feedback from the...
Yes, yes.
No, actually, no, nothing. Nothing. So the main procedure is just rotating and gentle pace pushing. And for CTO...
Terumo says more than a quarter of all coronary interventions in Latin America are done by TRI.
Catheter technology has allowed Terumo to secure a strong footing in the field of medical equipment manufacturing. But the company didn't stop there. It went on to develop more innovative devices, like this injection needle, nicknamed the painless needle. It's so thin, only 0.2 millimeters in diameter, it penetrates the skin without a sting. How is that possible? Here's the secret.
In July 2005, Terumo unveiled a revolutionary hypodermic needle designed with diabetics in mind. It was 20% thinner than standard types. Nicknamed the painless needle, its development began in 2000. A stroke of compassion inspired engineers at Terumo to take up the challenge. They were moved by the experiences of children with congenital diabetes. Daily injections of insulin were a source of physical and psychological pain.
Most people get injections for things like vaccines or for controlling fever. The most they might need an injection in their daily lives is every other month. But people who suffer from diabetes need insulin injections 3 or 4 times a day. I learned that the reality of diabetes means there are even very young children who need the injections 3 or 4 times a day.
Out of concern for their well-being, Terumo began developing a needle that would be gentle to people. The human body is covered with 100 to 200 pain sensors per square centimeter, lying just beneath the skin. The thinnest conventional needle is 1/4 of a millimeter wide. The risk of hitting the pain sensors is high. Engineers at Terumo determined that if the diameter of the needle could be reduced to 0.2 millimeters, the needle would likely be painless. But that would be a challenge.
Generally speaking, making the needle thinner would contribute to reducing the pain of an injection. Making a needle thinner was doable using traditional manufacturing techniques. But there was a problem. The thinner the needle, the higher its resistance to the substance being injected. We needed to find a technical solution.
A thinner needle would make it difficult to squeeze the medicine out of the syringe. The answer to the problem was to enlarge the base of the needle while keeping the tip thin. This would help to increase the pressure and ease the flow of the medicine through the needle. Kawamoto and his team put out a tender searching for a company that could engineer such a needle. One after the other, companies turned down the offer. They said the technology to make such thin needles didn't exist. Conventional manufacturing methods consist of elongating a metal cylinder. But this method could only produce an evenly shaped needle with a base and tip of equal diameter. Manufacturers had to invent new technology. But how feasible was that? One year after development began, Terumo's team crossed paths with a small processing company with only 6 employees. They handed a design plan to the company's president, Masayuki Okano.
They came to us with this blueprint, a narrow tip and an enlarged base. My first reaction was sheer surprise. I thought, wow, that's an incredible concept. I've never seen a needle like that.
We had visited about 100 companies when we finally came across Okano Manufacturing. By then, we were pretty desperate, and we implored them to help us.
I replied immediately. When I said we could deliver, they didn't seem to believe me.
Okano is the son of the company's founder. He's one of Japan's top presswork experts. His expertise is sought after by everyone from mobile phone manufacturers to NASA. His specialty is a process known as deep drawing. It involves pressing a metal sheet repeatedly to achieve an elongated form. Okano applied this technology in making Terumo's painless needles. Here's how it's done. A metal plate is first punched out with the characteristic shape of the needle. The plate is then curled into a cylindrical shape. Next, the seam where the edges meet would need to be sealed to keep the needle from leaking. Welding was ruled out because the extreme heat would warp the thin needle out of shape. The only option was to perfect the curling technique to close the edges tightly.
We had to control humidity and room temperature and bring the precision level of our presses to within a micron.
The micron level precision called for the use of a special type of metal in order to make a non-abrasive die for the press. Temperature and humidity had to be constantly adjusted to account for expansion and dilation of the metal. After a year and a half of trial and error, the engineers finally found a way to seal the gap. How exactly they did that is a company secret.
Somehow, we managed to create a sample. Now, we had to mass produce this product. We needed to devise a system to churn out 500,000 to 1 million units per day.
It took Okano Manufacturing in Terumo 3 more years to create a working model for mass producing the needles. Engineers invented an automated system that could produce needles in industrial numbers. In 2005, after 5 years of research and development, Terumo unveiled the world's tiniest hypodermic needle called the NanoPass, with a tip only 0.2 millimeters wide. But size wasn't everything. The company got to work on taking the needle to the next level, making the tip even better.
We had the idea of cutting into the skin instead of piercing it.
The tip of a conventional needle stabs and tears through the skin, causing resistance and thus more pain. The knife-shaped edge of the NanoPass penetrates the skin more easily, therefore reducing the pain. In 2012, Terumo released the NanoPass 2 with an even smaller tip of 0.18 millimeters. The needle also features an improved tip.
We want to make this product available to those who are more vulnerable to pain, like children and elderly people. We'd like to see our needles being used in every country in the world.
So far, Terumo has sold 800 million units of its painless needle. Nanopass needles are already available in Europe. The company is now seeking to export them worldwide.
For decades, Japanese manufacturers of medical equipment lagged behind their rivals in Europe and the United States. Terumo was able to close this gap by developing new products based on the idea of treating patients gently, such as the catheter guide wires and needles we've seen. And there's yet another Terumo product that is sought after by a growing number of neurologists around the world. It's a hydrogel endovascular coil used in the treatment of cerebral aneurysms.
Terumo is developing its catheter technology to go beyond the heart and into the human brain. The company's hydrogel endovascular embolization coil has significantly reduced the risks involved in the treatment of cerebral aneurysms.
Catheters, guide wires, and coils have become more flexible and more reliable, improving the safety of endovascular coiling. It's fair to say the progress of medical devices has pushed medicine to a new level.
A cerebral aneurysm is a localized dilation of an artery or vein in the brain. Tiny coils are inserted into the aneurysm to prevent it from rupturing. Any gap between the coils could lead to more blood penetration, further expanding the aneurysm and raising the risk of it rupturing. Terumo's hydrogel coils are coated with a gel that expands after they're inserted into the aneurysm. The gel fills the gaps between the coils.
I think this technology shows tremendous potential. We think it will allow us to decrease the risk of relapse after the aneurysm has been treated.
Terumo is developing more devices that are capable of penetrating not only our hearts and brains, but other blood vessels in our bodies.
Japan has proven its ability to take products developed in other countries and make them better. And its rapidly aging society is acting like a catalyst, taking medical care to the next level. Consider these two factors, and we can expect Terumo and other Japanese manufacturers will continue to contribute to a never-growing one that puts innovation to the service of our care and well-being. And that's it for this edition of JTech. Thank you for watching, and please join us again next time.